so disappointed. I did not get any of that on.
Oh,
okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, but it was freaking good.
Oh,
Damn it. That was good content. This didn't record. Okay, so your incessant obsessiveness.
Yes.
Or a physical discomfort. I want you to, so I almost, my fingers are much better now, but I sliced the tip of 3 fingers at, not the top, but kind of center of the top digit. And it went through the entire skin layer, and the fat was coming out of my fingertips on all 3 fingers. Okay?
Oh my gosh.
That is so much better than what you're describing.
Okay.
Just so that you know.
That doesn't sound like it to me.
It's so tolerable. Physicality, that's easy. What you're talking about is incessant. It doesn't go away, and it completely keeps you in dark, demonic depression. What is life worth if you have to perpetually be in emotional pain and anxiety? Physicality, chop my hand off. I don't care. That you can get over. You can adapt to that. What you're doing is that is your adaptation to life. So that's your life. You're in survival mode. How does it go? How do you get it to go away around your weight? The illusion is that if I lose weight, it'll go away. That's the fantasy. When I lose weight, this obsessive compulsiveness, this irritation, continuous irritation and agitation around food and my weight and whatever, will go away when I'm thinner. Don't you agree? That's kind of what you're believing.
Yes. I mean, yes.
That's the feel of it, right? That's the feeling that you think. That's the feeling you have attached to this idea. Because it is an idea, right? When I lose weight, when my body is thinner, I will be free from this obsessiveness. I will be free from feeling like a piece of shit. I will be free from having to hide because I don't feel safe. So when I'm thinner, I'll feel safe. I can come out of hiding and I will be free. Isn't that the mirage?
Well, and I've experienced that.
Hold on a second, but you didn't, because it didn't stay. Even if you're thinner, it goes away.
Right.
So you haven't experienced that, because what you think in that fantasy, and this is something I want you to recognize as well, is, well, when I think of that, I think it's like a destination that will keep. And so you experience it, it's very fleeting. It is very fleeting. And here's how we know. Because you aren't willing to incessantly diet to keep it. It's not that good. You're not. It's not that great.
Right.
So the fantasy is freaking amazing. It's a narcotic. It's like that's what you're addicted to. If you want to talk about addiction, you are addicted to that thinner body and what you think it's going to do for you, which is help you relax, have ease, feel good about yourself. That's addictive, right? Because it's survival. That's like saying, I will come out of survival mode and I can survive. I'll be like, I prove I'm surviving because I'm thin, right? So you've attached this survival mechanism to thinnerness, which is why you have all these symptoms of survival mode and withdrawal when you feel fatter.
Yeah.
Right. Here's the other thing I also want to acknowledge with how you feel about your weight and how you feel about the discomfort of it. Because I do believe that. You're not making it up. You're not lying. You are you are. It's all relative. I cannot tell you how many people I've worked with who are 400 pounds. And you're catastrophizing your body to be that.
Right.
So it's important that even though you look at how you've emotionally catastrophized it is actually making the psychosomatic response worse.
Right. And someone who is, I totally get how someone who's 400 pounds would look at me and think,
she's
honey,
clueless.
why are you have any?
She's clueless. You're
like,
clueless.
Right, and that's the same when I look at, like, when my friend who's a freaking 110 pounds and complain, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like,
no, it's called cognitive distortion.
And I'm like, okay, she may feel the exact same way that I feel.
Yeah. And she's responding. An anorexic truly believes that a gain of 5 pounds is catastrophic. And they feel it. And they feel it. It feels like barbed wire all over their body.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, because you're connecting with what I'm saying. So remember when I said to you just a little bit ago, I don't believe a word you're saying. And that's so good for you. It's so good for you, because someone in a diet clinic would go, oh yeah, yes, I know. It's just so horrible. It's so terrible that you have an extra 20, 30 pounds. It's like the plague.
Yeah.
You're acting as if it's like nausea. Like you walk around with nausea permanently. I mean, what would you rather?
Oh, no. Yeah, I'd rather be.
Notice how your reality with your weight is not a big deal when you compare it to an actual problem. An actual problem. Nausea. Imagine walking around with nausea 24/7.
Yeah, I've been my brain, my, thoughts are so disordered. I work in GI, and people are, have stomach issues all the time, and I've even, I have thought, like, well, gee, I would take stomach issues if it would make me lose weight. Now, cancer, no.
Okay, that right there is so anorexic. But although some of my pathological narcissists would rather have cancer to be thin. So you do have kind of an edge of what you're willing to do to be thin. That is so survival oriented. That's how insecure you are.
Right.
Yeah.
I know, it's awful. Like, okay, I'll take door number 1, but then, I don't want number 3. Like,
yeah.
I'll be fat.
And I think the other thing to witness too is that's how hard this is for you. That you would rather have a permanent GI problem and be thin. That's like bulimics. They'd rather just abuse diuretics, that get false teeth. They'd rather have tons and tons of problems to be thin. Because to them, it's survival. And so when you look at the survival impulses that we have, it's like life and death. So underneath it, and this might be what you've been experiencing over the course of 2 days, as I told you, this is what I want you to think about, because this is going to suck, is that feeling, if I don't do this, my life will suck forever. If I don't lose weight. Right? So that's where we come to I can't imagine being overweight and not wanting to fix it.
Right. I think I'm in a kind of a confused state of limbo. Like, I'm just like in that torn in, like, it's like a tug of war, I'm like, oh, I know I have to do this, but
I don't know how I'm going to do it. How do you just stop and be okay with it? Because the problem is that you're not okay with it. And that is obviously the goal, is that you are to the point where you're like, I would rather have this. I would rather. So, okay, so going back to that original conversation where you said, Robin, I understand this, but I just can't imagine not wanting to do something about it. And I had said to you, well, that's because you believe that when you do something about it, when you get thinner, that you no longer have to do anything about it. So that's the weird, it actually is very weird perspective, because in reality, well, it's weird, it's common, that's what everybody thinks. So I don't want to make you think that you're abnormal. It's super normal to think this way. But you have so much evidence that what you're imagining doesn't even exist. Because you've been thinner, you've had your momentary narcissistic pleasure of I did it, I'm special within myself, I'm confident in me, and then what happens?
I slowly start to gain it back.
Because it's not worth it. You'd rather get your food. It's not as valuable as you imagined it to be. If it was, you would never eat again. Right?
Right. I
Because,
think like something in me, you get comfortable, and then you're like, oh, it won't happen,
yeah, but so I want you to rethink this for a second. What if you were given an awareness that you can lose weight? Of course you can, right?
Yeah.
Of course you can. You know you can. You know you have. In fact, everybody I work with, it is right there. Yes, you can. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that you are not aware yet that you have to continue to restrict food permanently. So that's what you're not seeing. And I didn't see it either until I did. And it was sucked because then I had to make a choice. Either I accept a life of misery where this is all I do. This is my purpose because that's what it takes. Right? That's what it takes. I will never be free from having to micromanage my food. I will always have to worry about what's in it. I can't necessarily just order what I want. I have to make all these changes at a restaurant, and I'm going to look weird to everybody around me, and I have to accept those things. I have to accept that I'm going to constantly be body checking to make sure I don't gain. I'm going to have to keep this in check. I have to defend this body when I lose it. So there is no release. I don't get the freedom. I get the body and I get the attached emotions to it, but it comes at a cost. It's not free.
Right.
And that's what you don't see yet. That's why you still are wanting it. So what I have to be able to help you see is that it is not free. You can have the thinness and you can have that separated, attached emotion of, I did it. But in reality, you live in this incessant work. And if you let go and go back to food, you have to keep it. You have to fix it. So this cycle just keeps on going around and just turns in circles, which is what you've been doing, not realizing that there is no destination because it doesn't come free. The emotions that you fantasize say it's free. Once I get there, it'll be so amazing that I'll keep on living this way, but it's never really that amazing, and living this way eventually gets very tedious, and you fatigue because you're actually trying to maintain famine while you live in a first world environment where we don't have famine. Right? You fatigue.
Right. No,
so you can see, well, I will fatigue. And then I'll go back to food, and then I'll gain weight back, and then I'm going to feel like shit again about it, and then I'm going to do it again. I'll go back into the crazy train. I'll go back into my cage. I'll fix it again. I'll feel like I'm proud again. I'll come out of the public again, and then I'm going to probably fatigue again, and I'm going to want to go back to food because I'm human, and then I'm going to say, I'll just do it again, and that's the way it is. That's the way it is because you don't get the thinness that requires you restrict. It requires restriction. So if the body to get that thin requires restriction, it's not its natural homeostasis point, is it? If it requires you restrict, it isn't its natural state of being.
Well, what if it? Because see, I mean, when I've got to that point, like, I never really stayed too long, but I would always, but I never ever got to that point and then ate in moderation.
Yeah, well, the problem is, and that's another fantasy too, and a lot of people think that with me. They'll be like, okay, I'm going to do another round of the protocol, of which you couldn't even finish, FYI. Because remember, you just flip-flopped between I'm a victim of my body to I'm a victim of the protocol. So either way, that's reality. So let's go into a fantasy that you actually do it and you lose your weight, okay? How are you going to feel about relaxing into food when you've got the weight you want?
I mean, probably scared.
Oh, so that's true. You're right. It is scary. How is that going to manifest in how you eat?
you'll eat dysfunctionally. You know,
Yeah. Well, you're doing the same thing right now. I'm trying to get you to actually relax into it, and you're struggling because you're scared. So you're living that right now. You're scared. And so you'll notice it's really difficult. And that's what I found over and over and over again. So what you're describing, Karen, is what I found 9 years ago when I implemented the protocol. And the goal was that people would go back into eating to hunger so that they wouldn't go into that kind of all or nothing pendulum again. And the more scared people were about gaining weight, the more they went into eating too restrictive, because that matches their fear, right? Doesn't that make sense? If you're really scared, you're going to do something to feel better about it. And so if you're scared to gain weight, you are going to need to be controlling about food. It makes that should make sense. Like, well, of course.
Yeah.
I did the same thing. And I became hyper vigilant with exercise, and I was super, super defensive. And that's what you're not realizing. So that's why I say it's a fantasy. It's too idealistic. I see it all the time when I've worked with someone enough that they are fully recovered and they don't care and they're relaxed about it and they're more open-minded about eating to hunger after they've lost weight, because they know in their mind they would rather regain weight than to go back into that controllingness. The controllingness is actually really hard. That's where the darkness is. That's where depression is, you know.
Yeah.
The constriction, the isolation, and they're miserable in that controllingness because it requires all that obsession. You know, at least when people are on the binge side of the pendulum, they're relaxed. They have a lot of shame. Right. There's tons of shame and hiding, but at least they're relaxed, you know. So anyway, I initially thought okay, we can get people on this protocol, we can help them learn to eat to hunger, and then they can just focus on that as they transition out into the real world. And boy, was that naive. I didn't take into account people's fear of regaining weight and how that would affect their willingness to eat to hunger. Because eating to hunger is quite liberal in terms of it's a relaxed, you're guided by the body, so you're not controlling anything, you're being controlled. So when someone has fear, they're not going to necessarily willfully be controlled. They're going to be more self-defensive and protective. And that's where the hunger scale, and you might need to experience this. Well, you are experiencing this. You're experiencing it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I've been eating what I want, you know, and with kind of knowing that if I eat what I want, I will gain weight, because obviously if you eat, you know, even if you eat the same amount, that it's chicken and vegetables versus, you know, like other stuff, you'll gain weight.
Yeah, well, you just came off of the very low calorie protocol too, so you're susceptible to it, and so right. Yeah, yes, but you're also compensating, so you're over consuming. I would not be surprised, and that makes it. But it's so hard to relax into eating to hunger and eating what you want if you're scared to gain weight. It's like, that's hard. That's like cruel to do to someone. You know, you're scared to gain weight and you're expected to just enjoy food and like relaxed, you know. So I'm not the one imposing the hunger scale. Of course, that's the goal, but I'm trying to help you see, well, it's your strain with weight and fear of regaining is really going to make this hard on you. It's like sandpaper. It's like, it's really hard to make progress. You will make progress in the fact that we're kind of helping you think more open-mindedly, right?
Yeah.
You're getting more of like a perspective around this, and I'm really hoping that you're thinking a lot more. Like the brain needs to start churning around what you're doing and why you're doing it. Right?
Yes. I mean, I haven't, like, at least, like, I definitely haven't been binging. You know, definitely not.
Yeah,
but I have eaten
out of anxiety.
I haven't necessarily been hungry.
Yeah, that's out of
just,
anxiety. There's anxiety when you're eating. That's what you have.
Or just because I want, like, I'm like, well, I want this.
And you're wanting it for what reason? Because if you're not hungry, it's coming from something that deserves it.
Yeah, well, I think what I'm experiencing is like, okay, normally I'm not allowed to have all these things. And so now, like, okay, I have the freedom to have anything I want. And so now I want it all.
Yeah, well, and that part of that is because, and you want it now, right? I want it now.
I want all these things, but I'm, so I really need to be really hungry.
Do you have a sense of now to it? Like, I want it all, and I want it now.
Right.
Okay, that tells me a lot. That tells me that you think it's going to go away. Yeah, you think it's going to go away at some point. So that's dieting, right? That's like the compensation for dieting. So what would happen if you knew it was never going away? Your entire life, these foods will be here forever. All day long, every day, forever.
I'm trying to tell myself that. I'm like...
Yeah, but if you believe if you still believe that you can't gain weight, you can try all you want. You have this kind of brainwashed connection that these are dangerous foods. So if you're eating dangerous food, what is that going to do in the end to you're going to be restricting while you're eating it. I should only eat one bite. I should only eat 2 bites. Oh my God, I got to stop at 1 cookie. Shit, I've already had 3. Screw it. Because you're...
Right. I think I don't really believe deep down that I could eat.
Well, Karen, I'm trying to help you so much. I'm really trying to help you here. I'm really trying to help you. You need to relax.
I know.
The problem is I'm telling you what to do and you're just not doing it. You're listening to me. I know you are. You're listening and you're like, you believe me. I know you do. You're just gripping so tight. And I'm like, you can let go. You just like one finger at a time. And you're like, okay, Robin, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to let go. But I need to grip because I feel so shitty. I should just keep on gripping. It's like,
right.
You've got to be willing. And that's why I start out the gates. Okay, and this is the hardest thing when someone comes to me on the very low calorie protocol. I'm not going to lie.
Is letting go.
Yeah, because you're actually in your drug. It's like you're using on the protocol.
Right.
And
that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
So it's kind of like I'm not going to rip it from your fingers because you have to let it go.
Right.
And that's not easy. And so I'm really trying hard here. And I want you to know that there's nothing wrong with you. I just think a lot of people come to me and they have some idea of what they're going to get because it's coming from what you want and your biases and you think I can help you do it. And then when you come to me, I'm like, okay, you can get that, but you're not going to go the way you want to. That route doesn't work. Can't you see you've done it for decades? Can't do the same thing and expect a different result. So I've got to get you to let go so you can do something different. You can't do something different until you let go. And that means you have to, even if it's temporarily, be okay with weight gain. Just put it on pause. Put it on pause.
Yeah.
That might give you at least an initial, ability to let go. You can always come back. The protocol's always there for you, dearie. And so is Weight Watchers and ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting and paleo and gluten-free, sugar-free, dairy-free and all the anorexia that is promoted is always going to be there.
Right, and I don't want to go back.
Yeah, but you can. Just know you can. Just know it's... Yes, I do. Just know you can. It's always there for you. Always. In the past, you've been totally cool gaining weight. Just why not this moment?
mean, I'm okay with gaining weight because I've gained weight many times.
I know.
I've been overweight more in my life than I've ever been.
Of course, because that's how it all works, right? But when it comes to what I'm teaching you right now, it's really difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I just I'm okay with gaining weight, but then.
So I should get all the food I need in right now.
Well, because I don't know if I'm okay with staying there, but like you said, the body should adjust on its own.
Yeah, but don't. Yeah, but here's the thing. My goal is to get you to be open-minded about what it is. What you just said about whatever your body is, like where it adjusts to.
Right, which I guess I'm open-minded. I'm just still, I guess, a little hopeful that it wouldn't be.
Okay, that's not open-minded at all.
I know.
I am open-minded, but I'm really not. You're so ready for this, but you're kind of on that, I don't know if I'm ready, but I feel like I'm ready, but I don't know if I can do it.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm being torn. I feel like
you're like the kid on the high dive. I think I can do it. I'm ready to do it. I'm gonna do it. And you get up there and you're like, oh. I'm backing away.
I just have to jump.
Well, for some people that is what they have to do because they can't go back down. It is.
Yeah.
It's so horrible. They can't. They can tell they're going to lose their mind or commit suicide.
That's a good analogy. Like when we were at the river, you see there's this Copper Canyon place where these big rocks and these people climb up the rocks and they get up there and they.
You can't go down any other way, dearie.
Right, and some jump right away, and some they're up there forever, and everyone's cheering them on.
And that makes it worse. That's how I am. Because I have a fear of heights, and I'll do it just to re-experience willingness to die.
Yeah,
because that's what it is to me. And it's always so wonderful to go through that again, because that's what it took for me to recover is a willingness to die. Psychologically, not just and physically, but psychological death is what it is. And you get to a place where you can go back. And for some people, they're not miserable enough. They're willing to go back into the misery because they're not miserable enough.
Right.
And that's okay too. To me, it's well, if recovery is meant to be, if they're not miserable enough, then it's okay for them to go back into their addiction. They might need to learn that it goes in circles. They think it still goes into a destination, right? And so they might need to go through circles 3 or 4 more times before they realize, oh, there is no end. Remember when I said to you at the beginning of the session where I said, oh, you still think the destination exists, but what you don't realize is it just goes in circles. You might not see that yet. And so that's where you go, well, if I go back down the ladder, I'm going to do the same thing again and again and again. Yes. And at some point, I'm going to get right back here on the high dive. I'm going to be right back here. Right. And the only reason I go in circles is because I'm not willing to jump.
Yeah.
And so it is exactly right. Mm-hmm. That describes it to a T.
Yes.
I remember the feeling. It's like I refuse to jump. So I go back into the miserable cycle because I'm so afraid. So I live in this weird cycle and it is taking over my mind and it does get worse. I found a bunch of journals from when I was going through this and there was one day I wrote, it was so sad. It was I feel that my brain, I feel like I have a horrible, horrible disease that is taken over my entire mind and I can't get out. And it gets worse. It's just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And now I can't stop. So you might not be that bad, But can you tell that it's gotten worse?
Oh yeah, no, I mean I've been that bad. Like I told you,
Yeah.
there's times when I thought the only way out of this circle is to not be living.
Yeah, that's called hell.
Yeah.
It's hell, if you
Right.
want to call
Yeah,
it that.
I wouldn't-
And we're in the depths of hell, is to kill yourself. Correct. But there is an
Right. No, I wouldn't
alternative,
do it.
right?
You know, I
But
wouldn't.
the alternative, though, is to jump. Jump.
Right, exactly, right.
That's the only thing you've never done. You've never done it. And all I'm saying is, Karen, you know that is there. And if you could jump,
Right.
then that's at least an alternative to death and the misery. So when the misery gets so terrible that the fear of jumping is actually relatively better, that's when usually people jump. Because they're like, my life is so horrible anyways. What's the risk? You might not be there yet. Because to you, the misery, you still believe that something positive is going to come out of it. But I don't want to give it up because I might get that. I might get there. And I might feel that freedom permanently. If I can maintain it, if I can just maintain my weight loss, Robin, then I will have hit heaven. Do you hear what that requires? If I can
how do people do that then? How do people go on the protocol or, and lose 50 pounds and then can keep it off? Or
they go into obsessiveness. That's one way. And a lot of people end up with degrees of anorexia and bulimia. I see it all the time. I witness it a lot on YouTube videos where people are talking about their new ways of obsessive compulsively trying to keep their weight off. There's one way. The other way is I've worked with a lot of people who don't have these issues emotionally, and they're so gracious around the weight loss, and they're kind of like healthy people. And I say that with quotes because they have a pretty solid self-esteem. They're not relying on their weight and their size to please other people, to get friendships, to feel connected, and they don't necessarily value themselves so intensely. But keep in mind, those people are not attracted to the HCG protocol. So I've seen it only because I've seen so many people do it.
Yeah.
So it was usually, my best friend did this. She tells me it's amazing. I'll try it. Because I don't know. And so they're really lenient around their expectations.
Right.
So you can see why they would have an easy time.
Yeah. I mean, my expectation with any diet is, doesn't work fast enough. It's not working. Let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah, you're radical. You're radicalized. You're an extremist. Yes.
Yeah.
And to you, it's highly emotionally charged. You are trying to compensate for feeling worthless without it. You feel within yourself worthless if you're not thin. Or thinner. Thinner. It doesn't have to be thin. It can just be thinner than you are. You feel worthless. Embarrassed. Take those emotions and then compensate with the HCG protocol. Now we got problems.
Yeah. And I guess, I guess, how do you get rid of those feelings? I mean, like, when, they've been so ingrained in you, like.
Well, you've always thought that by being thinner, those feelings would go away. You've always thought it. And when you are thinner, you have a temporary moment of your narcissism, which is temporary, like a high, like, oh my God, but it always goes away because it's not real. It's very much conditional, and it is, it's not as valuable as you fantasized it to be, so you go back to food, and it's only temporary, right? And it goes in circles. And the problem is you've never detached as you've attached that sense of worth to thinnerness, and you've never attached it to anything else. You put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
So the only way for you put all your eggs in one basket and you're refusing to remove them from that basket.
Okay, so I need to find something different that I feel of value.
Yeah, and make it not narcissistic. Or reliant on something extrinsic. Why can't you place those eggs in something that's truthful about yourself without, what that's natural about yourself? That's a better word, a natural value about yourself. And again, let's not make it narcissistic, like I'm special. I'm a special categorized human being. Why does it have to be that? Why can't you just see that?
Example of natural extrinsic.
Extrinsic that would be outside of your reality. I'm talking about being intrinsic. Intrinsic means it's natural part of who you are as a human. So for me, what I was born with is this sense of I want to just have fun and I don't mean harm to anybody. I'm actually a very safe person. You are safe with me. I am not out to get your shit. I don't need anything from you. I just want to have fun. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Right? I've attached worth to that. And it doesn't mean that someone else not competing. To me, it's very human. It's like, well, yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are that way. But you know what? I'm like that. And that's what my value is. So I might not be the most focused individual. I might not be a good person for certain jobs. My temperament isn't. But I do know this, that I am a good person and I am safe. I'm a safe person to be with. And that's my quality. And you know what? I'm going to allow that to be how I define my worth as a human with other people. If they want more from me than that, I don't know if I want their approval.
Right.
Someone else who needs me to suffer and to be conformed and brainwashed and to be a slave to whatever that is, I'd rather not be liked by them.
Right. Yeah, who cares? Move on.
Yeah, well, in this case, you aren't willing to not be liked by people who want you to be thinner. So even if you say, well, it's not other people I care about, it's me, but in reality, your desire to be thinner is directly tied to social approval. It's just what you want to be to go out socially. It's social approval within yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I feel comfortable to go out in public.
Mm-hmm.
That's social approval. You just feel comfortable with yourself to do it, or safe with yourself to do it. You don't necessarily want other people to give you, validation at this point in your life. You're not going out to get validation, but you certainly needed to validate yourself to a very high standard to feel comfortable to go out.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that.
Yeah.
Or I think I'll have more fun,
Yeah, because thinner people have more fun.
Yeah. Yeah. But then when I go out, when I force myself, then I do still have fun. So
I know, because you're not seeing that's like you're like me. I'm fun. I'm always up for a good time.
Yeah.
Right? I want to have a good time.
Yeah.
I want to get along with people. I don't like drama. I'm not looking for drama. I avoid drama. I'm a great person to hang out with. I'm a great person to travel with. I am open-minded. I am like... Anyway, so you that to me is like awesome. It's not superior than others, but I feel that makes me... I'm good enough. I'm good enough. What else do I need? So that's our goal. It's that you feel good enough. And the key here with this situation is you've got to be good enough even if you're fat. Because that's where you've had problems, is you think you can be amazing, but if you're fat, you are a pile of shit. So you're not good enough. And that's why you're so fixated on this. It's not that you don't care or think that you're a quality human. You just think that quality is completely negated when you're fat.
Yeah. I mean,
am I wrong? I could be wrong.
No, not at all.
It's
That's
connecting.
exactly like, that's why everyone around me is just like, why can't you see yourself the way everyone else sees you?
Well, you do. You do when you're thin.
Right.
That's
so,
the
like,
problem.
why can't I see myself now? You know?
You can't see it when you're fat because you think it's catastrophic. So how do we stop this? Well, you have to desensitize. In a way, we can use that language. Desensitize your perception of fatness. Is it really? And the only way to do that is to make it permanent. You've always never had to address it because to you it was fixable, changeable. I can manipulate my weight.
Right.
So you've never had to address changing your perspective about it. And I guarantee your perception comes from a child. It's a very childish, immature perception. You've never gone in and it's like going into the actual settings and turned it down. You turned it way up as a child and you've been trying to compensate for it since then. And I'm saying, look, you got to go in there. We got to turn this way down. Well, the only way to do that is to address it. Stop trying to compensate for it. That's what all this dieting and all this rationalizing and excusing but I'm uncomfortable. All that is like saying, I don't want to go in and change the dial. I'd rather accommodate to it and just devote my entire life to trying to manage it so that I can maintain what my expectations were when I was a child or a teenager. The only way to reset this is for you to stop what you're doing. The only way to get you to stop what you're doing is to allow yourself to gain weight. Then you address the situation and turn the dial down to a more mature, wise, aware setting.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I do think I have, immature thinking and very...
Well, when it comes to this, for sure. When it comes to this. And you know it. You can feel it. That's why it sucks so bad, too. It's just so dumb. Why can't I stop?
Right.
Yeah. So your wisdom is there. It's just not...
that a million times.
Yeah, I know.
Why can't I stop?
This is so dumb. I know, and your misery. So you're a slave to it, and it's because of your survival mode has been attached to it. You attach survival to thinness at a very young adolescent age.
Yes, very young. Yes.
So
now, do I have to go back and go back to things that happened when I was young? I mean, that's why I don't know.
Some people need to so that they can understand why they compensated with this and what the source is. Like I have a client currently that was molested from the age of 6 to 13 by her stepfather. And she thought that there was something wrong with her, which is why he did it to her, that there was something inherently attracted it. Yeah. And her way to cope was to try to be thinner to feel that she was fixing the flaws of what she thought she was. Like maybe I wasn't, confident enough, so she had those underlying beliefs about why it was happening to her. And we had to address that. We addressed it immediately, but not everybody has that type of trauma. And coping. To you, it could have been I was made fun of by some guy, or my sisters or my best friends were thin and all they did was diet. It could be something so passive. But either way, you can go that route. What I have found is it can do some good because it just makes you're more forgiving of yourself. Like, oh, no wonder I'm doing this. There's that, but it's also doesn't necessarily get you to jump off the diet being bored.
No, because I mean, I think I know. I mean, I know it's not necessarily one particular thing, but I know when it kind of started. You know, I know I probably could know what why. And
Well, and it would probably make sense. Where you're like, well, of course I would gravitate to this, especially because it's socially so promoted, and it's promoted with adults in it at the time. You know, the 1980s, the 1970s, it was just like, it was cool to be on a diet. It was cool to be thin. You know, that whole narcissistic way of being in the 1980s was massive.
Right.
And so now you're having to recover from it. And you're you know, the truth within you wants to evolve.
Yeah.
But this is so unevolved. And you're holding on to it. You know,
right.
But because it was used for your survival, your brain says, I have to have this to survive. You know, it's kind of like I went camping one time and a bear came and opened my tent and started chewing on me and I got away. And I'm asking you to go camping right now.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense? It's like your survival says, don't go to that spot. Don't go there. That's where you get rejected. That's where those original feelings will come in. You can't feel that. Don't feel inadequate. Don't feel inferior. Don't feel like you suck. Do something about it. You know, don't feel worthless. It'll kill you. You have to be thin. Thinness will get rid of those emotions. And so part of the problem is, as we're saying, you are going to have to be this size forever, is now those underlying emotions of, you know, I'm a worthless piece of shit. No one, you know, they start to come back up. That's what you've been running away from. That's what you've been trying to hide from. You know, are those emotions that feel, if you really let them come up, if they start bubbling up, you're going to feel panic. And a lot of people suppress, and they do that with denial. They do that with, you know, blame. They do it with hiding. There's all sorts of coping mechanisms that are kind of amazing when you look at it. And when you get rid of all of that, it can actually grow into feeling like you're going to die. And a lot of people I work with, I describe that. I say, oh yeah, it's going to, when you stop doing anything, like if you allow yourself to be fat, that's just how it's manifesting, right? You are going to feel like you're getting murdered. And they're like, no, I don't feel like that. I'm not as crazy as some of your clients. And as they go through this process, I hear it all the time. Oh my God, Robin, I did not think you were right, but you were right. It's incredible how intense my fear is of it. I mean, and then they connect the dots around, oh, no wonder I'm so impulsive. I'm not abnormal. That to me is like, okay, of course, when you have this type of underlying extreme fear, your reaction to it's going to be extreme. And so it really gives them a sense of compassion for themselves. We are not there yet. We still need to kind of you've got to be willing to kind of expose yourself to get there. Once you start allowing that to happen, things will start rapidly unraveling for you. Right now, you're kind of you're like, we haven't even started yet. Our work is beginning, but it'll really go once you let go. But you'd have to, in your heart, you'd have to want to address and face some of these issues. And it could be a traumatic experience we need to talk about just to address it. Even though it's like, oh my God, I'm re-experiencing it. That client I worked with, and I have a lot of her videos right now on my P-Train account. She did.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of them.
Okay, she's like, I did not want to even tell you about it because I didn't want to address it. I didn't want to feel those feelings again.
Yeah, I mean, I stuffed feelings stuffed them down my whole entire life.
Okay, so what if we pull them back out? So what's going to happen when we pull them back out? When we have those feelings, do you feel like you're in a place where you can handle it?
Yes.
Yeah, I love how you just said it. Yes, because that was a good verbal, explanation of it. You probably don't feel like you can handle it, but you're in a place where you could tolerate it.
I mean, it's scary, but I know I have to. I'll never jump off the rock unless I do this,
Mm-hmm.
So I know I have to.
Well, and you might not have been able to maybe handle it as a young kid or a teenager or young adult because you didn't necessarily have a way to handle it any other way other than just suppress it.
Right.
And now you're old enough where you're now having consequences from that suppression or repression and coping.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually what happens is it works as a kid. It's amazing how you can survive with coping mechanisms as a child, but those coping mechanisms come back to be very harmful as an adult.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so the only way to actually get rid of what the coping mechanism is to actually readdress the experience and recontextualize it, because now you have perspective, and your brain is fully developed. You're not you have relativity now on your side as an adult, to understand adults, to understand relationships. And so you could actually address what you've experienced and recontextualize it to a place where it isn't actually what you thought as a child now that you look at it as an adult.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely know there's some things that happened, and I'm like, oh, well, like, it doesn't really affect me. I just...
Well, it might not. It might not affect you. That's the thing. It's like there's some things that people separate themselves from. It doesn't necessarily impact... I don't necessarily believe that you have to go in and address every single thing. I think that that's actually a waste of time. We have to address what you're doing now, currently. Right. It's as simple as saying you have to be willing to gain weight. Willing. And to not feel sorry for yourself or go through a childish fit because of it.
Yeah.
So you have to ask the question, Karen, is it really as bad as you've emotionalized it to be? And you have to go into what in your heart. It's a heart question. Is it as bad? Would my life be as bad as I've mentally feared it to be? Is that fear really coming from truth? Or is it coming from ignorance?
Probably ignorance. No, I mean, my life wouldn't be that much different. And if I was, and like everyone says, which I truly do believe, like, if I weighed 20, 30 pounds less or whatever, I mean, I still have the same life, like...
Yeah, the same being, the same perceptions, the same awareness, the same... Nothing changes. Not one thing.
Right. I mean,
it's a physicality.
Like, maybe right in the beginning, it's because you're on that high, like you said. Like, it's kind of like being in a new relationship, Like, it's like all butterflies and it's so exciting. Well, that doesn't last.
Yeah, because it's all sentiment. It's all weird emotions that aren't based on reality.
That does not stay like that.
No, imagine being in a relationship where you have to be a slave and starve yourself for it to work.
Right. I mean, like, then it takes work. Like, really, like, as years go by, it takes actual work. It doesn't just... Yeah, so.
Yeah, but should you stay in a relationship that requires you starve and abuse yourself to maintain?
No.
Okay,
no.
that's the problem is you think, well, I'll lose weight and then that relationship will be better. Oh, well, hold on. No, you have to stay thin for it to work.
Right, exactly.
Shit, that means I have to constantly be a slave to this? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what it takes. And you have to really look at it then. Would you pursue this idea of thin supremacy if you knew that in order to reach it, you have to live a slave to what it takes to stay thin?
No.
It's not worth it. It's kind of like saying, sure, I'm married, but I'm miserable.
Right.
Wouldn't you rather get divorced and just be free? Okay, so that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We are divorcing thinness.
I need to, yes.
Okay?
Yeah. I need to.
Yeah, you need to question, do I actually get anything out of it? Do I get anything out of this thinness? What do I get? I get misery. I get a slave.
Right.
I get this weird, I can go out in public when I'm thin. How abusive is that? But when you're fat, you can't go out in public. That's so abusive.
Right. Yeah.
I know.
Oh, it's like, it's crazy.
Well, you need to look at it from your wiser, again, what you've been thinking is actually not, it's ignorance.
Yes.
If you had to stay this size permanently, is it as bad as your ignorance says it's going to be? What is the truth? And that's what you need to find out is what is the truth? If I have to stay this size or bigger forever in order to be free, is it really as bad as I've catastrophized it to be? Because I've never really done it or allowed it. I've just catastrophized it as the worst thing that anybody could ever have. Right?
Yeah.
So you need to contemplate that. Is it really as bad as you emotionalized it to be? Because the emotionalizing of it, it's bad. Sucks. No wonder you want to go back into dieting, right? That's what you're talking. Then when you say, Robin, I can't imagine being this way and not wanting to diet. Well, that's because the being this way to you is miserable. It's terrible. It's horrible. I'm embarrassed all the time. But is it really worthy of all those emotions if it means you no longer have to be in a miserable marriage with thinness?
Right. Yeah. Right.
You know those battered wives that just always go back to the same asshole?
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I'm doing.
Yes, it is. It is like
battered wife syndrome.
I believe it is a syndrome. That's why when I work with people, they recover so quickly. If it was a mental illness, it wouldn't have the same recovery. It's rapid, which is what they see when a syndrome, when you take those spokes off of the wheel, it doesn't work anymore. See, they don't have the syndrome. It's like, whoop.
Yeah.
So, okay, I gotta go.